One of the most helpful things I learned is that I'm not alone. You're not alone. And as we open up to the right people, we'll see our communities grow bigger and stronger. If you find this video helpful, please support us by liking and subscribing. And if you know someone this video can help, please pass it their way. My mission is to help make the world a safer place by sharing with you the stories that saved me. So how did you meet Tommy?
I went to a club with my friend, and she ended up meeting up with her boyfriend. That kind of just like left me like by myself, and I was going through a very like low period of self-esteem and not really not really attracting to dudes. You know what I mean? Like it was just and he came up to me, and I'm saw my vulnerability, I'm sure, and came up to me and started talking to me, and we're dancing, and he's like this big party guy. Uh, so I was kind of swept away by it then. Um, and so I was like, oh, I had fun, and my friend, wherever she went, I didn't even know. She kind of just left. Um, and needless to say, we're not friends anymore. But yeah, so she just kind of bailed on me, and then this guy, he's like, I'm gonna come see you tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And I said, do you want my address? He's like, no, I'll find you. And he showed up, and I had no idea how he knew where I was or anything. And like part of me was like, wow, that's really romantic. And I should have been like, wow, that's super scary. Like,
No part of you thought it was scary.
Well, in the back of my mind, I think I did, but I didn't want to admit to it. You know what I mean? I wanted it to be like, oh, what a romantic gesture. But in the back of my mind, I was kind of like, that's super strange. How did he do that? But yeah, I was lonely, and I was vulnerable, and he was like this bigger than life entity. So
Is that what attracted you to him, or did he actually do things?
In the beginning, he did things, but like he was one of those guys who comes in and just like he talks about like how he loves you right away, and like says all the things.
That's love bombing, right? It's not
Yeah,
called.
yeah. And but yeah, so he's he's saying all these things or whatever, but like my self-esteem was so low at that point in my life. Like even if it was like a backhanded compliment kind of thing, like I was still like, oh, I kept convincing myself of stuff. Like I kept rationalizing in my head, making it turn out like his favor at that point, because I was like, someone's in me.
And then when did it turn?
Well, there were times when when we had like plans-ish, he's like, I'll see you at the whatever, and he would bail on me, and I was like, and then he would like have
in the beginning.
Yeah, like not too long after we started, and I'd get mad. He'd be like, well, look, and he would get a little bit mad at me for getting mad, and
I know that.
and I was like, so then it's like, well, I'm sorry, you know what I mean? And so it like always got turned around, and then he'd do something, typical like big gesture after that. And
was there ever an I'm sorry, or was it?
There was I'm sorry's.
Oh,
yeah. So it was like after the fact of something that like I got mad at, and he's, we would go like, back and forth, and then later it'd be like, well, I'm sorry, but it was always kind of that passive aggressive, like, when you do this, you know what I mean, it makes me do this. So yeah.
What did it start off? Just verbal?
Yeah, it was just verbal, and then it he like trapped me into moving in with him, kind of thing.
How far into the relationship? Into dating?
Maybe 4 months or so. Okay. And at first it started with me like staying over, and then it was like, no, come over. You should just stay here. And then later on it became, I got an apartment and we're both like on the lease, which was a lie. But yeah, so then it was like, there I was in this crap hole, at his like mercy there.
Were you happy at 4 months when all this was happening?
No, I was scared already. I felt like I had gotten in so deep and things went wrong pretty quickly, and but I just I didn't know how to get out. And and there was a part of me that kept like trying to convince myself, but uh, it was mostly bad times, and or me pretending to have fun or that kind of thing. But he controlled so much of me even then that I was like, I don't know how to get out of this. Like, I had nowhere to go, and I was afraid, and and I tried to leave a few times before I actually got out.
What were some of the ways he controlled you?
Eventually, we didn't have a phone anymore, and I didn't have a phone, and I'd have to like walk to 7-Eleven to make a phone call, and he like we would like cut off all friends and family, like the thing.
I hated that.
And it was just a matter of like just keeping me just like, I can't do this, you're not good at this, where are you gonna go, da 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 da. He was taking all my money that I would make.
You were allowed to have a job?
Yeah, because he wanted my money. So I had a job, but then he used my car. He didn't have a car, and so he'd come pick me up, and then he'd be like, "Oh, I saw you were walking out with this guy," and like just lose his freaking mind. So, and then I would have to go through hell after that. And I was just like, I was literally leaving, and there was someone behind me also leaving. Like it was like the most innocent of things. And after that, I went through, that was bad after that. But yeah, he, at that point, like he'd gotten me a jacket or whatever, and he's screaming like, "Get in the car!" and he takes my jacket off, and it's like February or something, and he's like, "You don't deserve this," and so now I'm like the passenger in this car, and he's screaming at me the whole time. He's calling me names and saying all this stuff. Then he takes me to his mom's apartment. Now his mom was just as bad. So he's like, "I'm gonna tell my mom what you did," and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, like whatever.
Did you even know what you did at that point?
I just knew that I walked out with this guy behind me, like leaving my work.
Did you feel guilty? Was he able to make you feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have walked out with that guy?
At that point, we went to his mom's, and they were like, he made me stay outside, and then he said, "Sit in the grass. I'm gonna take my mom in the car, and she and I are gonna talk."
Again, this is February, and you still don't have your jacket.
Yeah.
And you just finished your shift at work.
Yeah.
And all you did was walk outside, and another guy just so happened to walk by. Okay.
And and he's like, "Don't get up or try to leave because we're circling around." So they kept circling around, and he like spit on me, and then when they finally came back, like his mom was like, "You're lucky he talked to me, and he's not gonna kill you." And I was like, "Oh." And then so obviously after that, like there were so many things, but after that, like obviously I knew I wanted out before that, but I didn't know what to do.
Did you have anybody, or was he very good at excluding you from everybody?
He was very good at excluding me from everybody. I mean, he would do things where he, I don't remember what I did for this specific exchange, but I was in bed and he broke a lamp on top of me, and he took a piece of it and carved it into his chest and then called the cops to say that I stabbed him, like I cut him. And the cops came and they were like, yeah, no, because it was like so superficial and like that was it. And like I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, so they were kind of like, oh God, and they left.
They didn't try to
No,
ask you.
I don't, like, yeah, they didn't even ask me like what was going on. They just thought he was nuts and they left. I mean, he had run-ins with the cops frequently. When I left, he had left a message on my sister's answering machine saying that he would have her raped. So I wanted to keep them involved as little as possible.
How many times did you try to escape?
3. The first time was a pathetic attempt. Like it was like I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. And then the second attempt.
What did you try the first time? Just leaving?
Yeah.
Like saying, I'm going, like making an announcement?
No, like just going. But I didn't really go like far or whatever. So it was easy, you know, I was still working at the same place. It was just easy to like track me down. And the second time I went to stay with some friends of my mother's. And they lived in like another state. And so I stayed there. And then I guess my family was like, you should come back. My dad had been angry about all this from the jump. Like he knew, you know, that this was a huge bad idea.
Did he know how bad?
No.
Nobody did?
No.
Did your sister?
No, I didn't let anyone know. The last time, because the last time I just didn't pick him up from work. I left him there. And so like during the day, like I think he thought I was at work and I'm like collecting all my stuff. And then I left again and I went away like to the same place that I'd gone before. And this time I was like, you know, I'm not coming back. And then my mother, she's like, I need you back here. She was living in this apartment. And so I stayed with her. And she was like, she knew the maintenance guy. And the maintenance guy had actually known Tommy because Tommy, like way back, was his son's friend. And so he knew he was like bad news and stuff. He's like, oh, if I see him, I'll call the cops, da-da-da. You know, I was back with my mom, and then my mom was like, oh, I'm expecting this delivery. It was like a check or something for a down payment, like to help out with my sister buying a house. So it was for a down payment for that. So she's like, so you're gonna have to answer the door. And I was like, I feel uncomfortable. She's like, well, you know, it'll be someone in a uniform, da-da-da, like we had the people. And there's a knock on the door, and I look out the window, and I don't see whatever car he had, like, when I left, because he wasn't just using mine at that point. And I look through the people, and it's the back of somebody in a uniform, and I open the door, and it's him. And kind of, like, pushed his way in. I'm looking out the window, I see that maintenance guy, so I'm so mad at this guy, because I thought he would call the cops, and he didn't. And so he tries to, like, Tommy tries to, like, force himself on me. And I said something to him about, like, oh, I have all this stuff in my car, because he had, like, pimped out my car with, like, these, like, big stereo systems and stuff. And I was like, I have stuff in my car that you probably want. And so we went out. He was like, I'm moving to Florida. He's like, I want you to come with me. And I was like, no. And finally I convinced him that I think my big outgoing line was, I I love you, but I don't make you happy, or something like that. Like turning it around on me, but saying, you're always mad. So for that day, like he had to get to work, so he left, and it was funny because my brother-in-law calls, and I'm like, oh my God, he was just here. And now Tommy was stupid. Like he was like convinced because my brother-in-law was like, he's part Italian and he looks really Italian, and he would like have his hair slicked back and he was wearing like, long leather coats and like had like necklaces and stuff. So I convinced him that he was like connected. So over time I was like, oh, he's messed up in some stuff. Like he's and who my brother-in-law probably never threw a punch in his life. You know what I mean? Like he's that guy. Yeah. And so he goes to his work, and he and everyone at his work hated him because he was
Tommy's work.
Yeah, they hated Tommy because he was just not respectful, not just go off like the way he talked to people and stuff. And I think he got fired there, and then like he went back and like pled his case, and they rehired him, and because they didn't have anybody, so they kind of were just like, when my brother-in-law showed up, they're like, do what you want. And my brother-in-law took him and like held him against the wall and was like, I will kill you. And or no, I'll have you killed. That's what it was. I will have you killed. And never saw him again. Right? I never saw him again.
If you look back, what could he have done differently?
So many things. Even from the time I met him in the club to just look at even those warning signs. Like he picked the girl who was all by herself, and right away it was like, let's drink a lot and whatever. But and then there were so many warning signs that should have gone off that I overlooked. When he found my apartment the next day, like I should have been like, dude, back up. But I was like, when it's just your but like there were times where I feel like I should have relied on people, and I was too scared to let them get involved.
Scared of what he was going to do to them.
Yes, and me, and but the people who are the abusers, you think they have all this power, and they don't have as much as they think. So if you do have a support system, there was no way he could get to everybody. You know what I mean? Like there was no way. He only felt real power over me, as much as like he would like to say he felt it over my family and everything like that. He didn't have it, and he would say things to me about them, but he wouldn't have been able to now granted he wasn't someone who was like carrying a gun or anything like that, but I did have a support system, and I should have relied on them, and even on my own I should have. It would have been a messy breakup whenever it was, but it would definitely not have been as bad as it was having waited so long. Yeah, it was definitely, the longer I waited, the worse. The harder it was to leave, the more power he had, like, just gained on me over time and time and time. So yeah, I should have been, especially before, like, when he was trying to, slowly, like, capturing me into staying with him, like, oh, like, now don't go, like, that also should have been like, no, I'm totally gonna go. Like, I'm,
I completely understand the fear. I remember my ex saying, if you leave me, I'm gonna kill you and the person I see you with. And I remember for years, whenever I thought I saw his car, I was just scared, and I put extra locks in my apartment. I remember when I finally got with somebody, I warned them. have a lot more patience and grace when it comes to people who are being abused. And like when they're ready to leave. Like, yeah, you stayed for a few years. I stayed for a few years, way longer than we should have. But we left when we were ready. I feel like I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but like,
how did you leave?
I just left. I just said I don't want this anymore. He wasn't nearly as abusive as yours. It was a lot of verbal, and we also used to hit each other. So I also felt that guilt.
So you were rationalizing the fact that you were defending yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, and then to be honest, like, the first time it was physical, he just grabbed me. I was the first person to throw a punch. So I remember saying to myself, I started this. You know, for almost 8 years. I'm like, I started this. And I remember, like 4-ish years in, I said, we need to stop this. And then I stopped. And again, like, we were hitting each other. Like, I remember him throwing me down the stairs once, and then we had a doggy gate at the bottom, and I like when he like ran down the stairs.
It's like those horror movies where you know how to fight the guy, like use your environment.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, like, I'm also the bad guy. Like, this is how I was saying it in my head, and then when I told him like we need to stop, I remember stopping, and I remember him. We used to be a few times a week we were fighting each other, and then it turned into a couple times a year he was just hitting me. And I was like, okay, he's trying. You know what I mean? Like, how am I gonna ask him to completely like
can't go
stop
cold turkey.
It was my idea, you know, so I can go cold turkey, but I can't expect him to, you know. But yeah. It was not nearly as.
But wow, 8 years.
Yeah, it's feeling like you have to stay is like.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, I've been through many other things in my life, but there was nothing that was more scary than waiting for the next moment, just like knowing that it's coming, but just waiting to see when it was actually happening, and then, you know, when it did happen, and it's like, what do I do now? What do I do? What do I do?
What are some things people should not say to someone who's going through?
So many things. You must have wanted to be there. You got yourself into it. That there's a part of you that's drawn to that. You know, because everyone has these things about oh, well, that's your personality, or you know, that's what you, and there's a pattern, you know, that you are going to be in abusive relationships forever, and I know that is true to a certain extent, that some people do fall into that because they leave and they don't give them enough time to heal, or they don't completely face what they went through, and then it is possible that they fall into another situation. But you know, could you possibly just say congratulations, or good for you, you're strong, you know? But it's no, you were weak. It's not you're strong, you were weak.
And if someone's still in the middle of it, how can someone be a friend?
I think it's very important. Now it's hard because a lot of times you're cut off from other people, but if you know that someone is, even if they're telling you they're happy, they're
You can always tell someone's not.
Yeah.
You always see the change.
Yeah.
Because they're always gonna lie.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm like,
right.
oh my god.
I'm fine. Don't even think that.
That bruise.
Right. That was, oh my god, I walked into a door. But yeah, I don't understand why it's on my elbow. But yeah, like in the middle of it, you have to know of your resources and where you are. And there are so many resources today, and it can be a matter of a lot of places you work or schools or whatever, they have people who are the safe people to go to, and then they are trained in handling it, that is like part of what they do. And because they have had specific training through the college or through wherever, that says like you are one of the people that we say to go to, like that, like they'll have papers hanging up or like in the bathrooms. That's a big thing. A lot of places, especially schools, in the bathrooms will have something hanging on the wall, in the stall door, that gives you resources, that lets you know about stuff, because they know that if you're with a man, that he's not going to know. This is the one place, and you're in a stall, and you can quick whatever because you're in the bathroom. So I think that's a big thing.
Your doctor.
Yeah. And there are doctors who will program the number of like a helpline or whatever into your phone as another name or a business or something, so that if your phone is checked, that they have no idea what that is. So it's usually like a business, like, because but now there's even like hand signals. Like I think that if you're like, if you're kidnapped or whatever, whenever you need help, I can't remember what they are, but you can look it up. But like where you just hold your hand a certain way, and like maybe it's like a number or whatever, and people need to know what this is so that they know what's happening, because they don't do it in front of whoever they're with. They like on slide, it's as easy as putting your hand a certain way, and then you can kind of size up the situation at that point, and call someone, and I think that's great, because I think it's super important. In a way, I think it's fascinating that you can have someone else call the police or whatever, and it doesn't look like you did anything. So how could he, if he tries to turn it around, we were just walking. I mean, it'll still be your fault. But at least you have like to plant that seed in his head. But yeah, there's such great places out there now too. There are places that, if you have children, they will take in. I mean, a lot of these are specifically for women, which kind of sucks for guys. But where they'll take you in, they'll take, there's like Turning Point where you can change your name, and you go through all these steps of like people driving you from here to there, and you're never with the same people, and then there's places like with very high security for women, especially with children, and they will provide you with some resources as far as like studying stuff, being able to present yourself for an interview. They get people, other women donate their like work clothes or something, so that these women can go to an interview and they can look professional and they know how to present themselves. There's one where a lot of women, once they bring to it is when they hit their breaking point, when they find out they're pregnant, or when they've had the baby and they see like what this child is being born into. Like a lot of times that's when sleep, and they have, harder than any of us because they're trying to protect their baby, they're trying to care for their baby, or like they have, you know, like they're going to give birth, and they don't even know where to do that because they're afraid. But like there are places that, again, and they will also help you with the same thing, and they'll take you, like if your child is under a certain age, or obviously if like you're pregnant, but they do the same kind of thing where they take you in and allow you to, they help you out, but finding your resources to give birth, and find like the doctors that you need to go to, that he won't know about. But, and I can't imagine being someone who brings a baby into, especially like, if he's like never around kids or anything, and you're pregnant and you know how he treats you, and the fear of God of what he would do to someone so helpless and so innocent, whether it be, whether it be their babies or they're 3 years old, or just knowing that, and what you would have to be able to do to protect them, and knowing that there's nothing, there's nothing really you can do to keep them protected if you stay. Now, sometimes it's specifically directed at the partner, and they don't direct it at the kids, but you don't know.
Sometimes I use the kids to get to the partner.
Yeah.
But there's resources out there, and everyone should know that. You'll never not have a place. There's so many
Right.
places that'll open up.
And again, I think it's a lot about finding those places. It's, when you go to work, call a number to find out more information about what you can do, or, call like the police and say, no, who do I need this to be, or I'm calling for a friend, or like whatever, just to be like, I just need some resources for this. Just need to know what's available. But yeah, I think that where you work, or go to school or whatever, is the best place to make your phone calls. Make it from the landlines there. Because he can't know. You can't check your phone. You can't. So I think it's important to, if you have that one place that you get to go, that he's not there, that's when you take advantage of the situation.
Thanks for opening up.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for opening up.
Of course. Victim to victim.
Right? Yes, victim to victim. 2 peas in a pod.